You're standing in line at your favorite coffee shop when your phone buzzes. It's a text from your boss. We need to talk about your performance. Your heart races. Your palms sweat. In that moment, you feel completely at the mercy of someone else's opinion. But what if I told you that 2,000 years ago, a group of ancient philosophers discovered the secret to becoming mentally unbreakable? What if you could face any criticism, any rejection, any attack, and remain completely unshaken? The Roman philosopher Seneca once wrote, "Bound upon me, rush upon me, I will overcome you by enduring your onset. Whatever strikes against that which is firm and unconquerable merely injures itself by its own violence. Wherefore, seek some soft and yielding object to pierce with your darts." Think about that for a moment. When someone attacks something truly solid, who really gets hurt? The attacker or the attacked? This is the heart of Stoic philosophy, the art of becoming so internally strong that external forces simply bounce off you. We live in a world designed to make us feel conquered. Social media algorithms feed on our insecurities. News cycles thrive on our fears. Workplace politics prey on our need for approval. Every day, we hand over our power to bosses who intimidate us, to strangers who insult us online, to ex-partners who know exactly which buttons to push. We've become so reactive, so fragile, that a single harsh comment can ruin our entire week. But here's what the ancient Stoics understood. You are only conquered when you choose to be. That difficult boss? They can fire you, but they can't touch your character. That online troll? They can type angry words, but they can't force you to internalize them. That manipulative ex? They can play their games, but they can't make you play along. The Stoics believed that true power doesn't come from controlling the world around you, it comes from mastering the world within you. They developed a complete system for building what I call bulletproof inner strength. Not the fake confidence you see in self-help seminars, but real, unshakable power that comes from understanding exactly what you can and cannot control. Over the next 9 sections, you're going to discover the exact strategies the Stoics used to remain unbreakable in the face of exile, torture, and even death. You'll learn why rejection only hurts when you let it, how to stop caring what others think without becoming a jerk, and what to do when someone tries to manipulate or control you. We'll explore real stories of people who faced the worst humanity has to offer and emerged unconquered. This isn't about becoming emotionless or indifferent. It's about becoming selective with your emotional investments. It's about building a fortress around your peace of mind that no external force can penetrate. Ready to become unconquerable? Let's begin with the one thing that defeats most of us before we even realize we're in a battle. 1. Why rejection hurts so much and how to stop the pain. Sarah had been preparing for weeks. The promotion at her Chicago marketing firm seemed perfect. Better salary, corner office, the recognition she'd worked 5 years to earn. When her manager called her in, she was already mentally redecorating that corner office. But instead of congratulations, she heard, "We've decided to go with someone else." The rejection hit her like a physical blow. She spent the next 3 weeks replaying every interaction, wondering what she'd done wrong, feeling smaller with each passing day. Here's the brutal truth, Sarah wasn't conquered by her boss's decision. She was conquered by her own reaction to it. The Stoics understood something profound about human psychology that modern neuroscience is only now confirming. Rejection hurts because we've programmed ourselves to make it hurt. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor who faced constant criticism and betrayal, wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." He understood that when we tie our self-worth to external validation, we hand over the keys to our emotional kingdom to anyone who wants to play dictator. Consider how differently people respond to the same rejection. Take 2 actors auditioning in Los Angeles. Both get told no 50 times. One spirals into depression, questions their talent, maybe even quits. The other shrugs, asks for feedback, and shows up to audition 51. Same external event, completely different internal experience. Why? Because they're assigning different values to the rejection. The ancient Stoics called this process impression and judgment. First comes the impression, the raw data of what happened. I didn't get the promotion. That's neutral information. But then comes our judgment. This means I'm not good enough. This means I'll never succeed. This means everyone will think I'm a failure. That judgment is where the pain lives. Epictetus taught, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. When someone rejects you, insults you, or disappoints you, they're not actually hurting you. They're simply providing external information. You're hurting yourself with the story you tell about that information. Let me share something that will change how you see rejection forever. In neuroscience studies, researchers found that social rejection activates the same pain centers in the brain as physical injury. But here's the fascinating part. People who practice mindfulness meditation show significantly less activation in these areas. They still experience the rejection, but their brains don't translate it into suffering. They've literally rewired their neural pathways to separate event from interpretation. This is exactly what the Stoics were teaching 2 millennia ago. When someone ghosts you after a promising date, when your manuscript gets rejected by the 20th publisher, when your business idea gets laughed out of the room, these are what Seneca called preferred indifference. Sure, acceptance would be nice. But your worth, your peace, your strength don't depend on it. The real danger isn't in the rejection itself, but in what the Stoics called adding to appearances. You get rejected once, and suddenly you're telling yourself you'll always be rejected. Someone doesn't text back, and you conclude you're unlovable. A client chooses your competitor, and you decide you're a failure. You're not just experiencing one rejection, you're creating an entire narrative of perpetual rejection. Here's a practical exercise straight from Stoic practice. When rejection hits, pause before the story starts. Ask yourself, what actually happened? Strip away all interpretation. She said no to a second date. That's it. Not, she thinks I'm boring or I'll die alone. Just the facts. Then ask, what is actually in my control here? Your improvements, your next attempt, your attitude, these are yours. Their opinion, their decision, their reasons, these belong to them. The Stoics went even further. They practiced something called negative visualization, imagining rejection before it happened. Not to manifest failure, but to rehearse resilience. Before the job interview, spend 5 minutes imagining not getting it. Feel the disappointment. Then remind yourself, if this happens, I remain whole. My character remains intact. My ability to try again remains unlimited. This isn't about becoming indifferent or pretending rejection doesn't matter. It's about what the Stoics called the reserve clause, wanting things while accepting you might not get them. As Marcus Aurelius put it, confine yourself to your own business and be ready to be a good person in whatever circumstances you find yourself. The most liberating truth about rejection is this: people aren't really rejecting you. They're protecting themselves, pursuing their preferences, and acting on limited information. That employer who chose someone else, they're trying to solve their problems, not judge your worth. That person who didn't want a second date, they're honoring their feelings, not condemning your character. When you truly understand this, rejection transforms from a verdict on your value to simply information about compatibility. It stops being personal and starts being practical. You don't need to be unconquerable because there's nothing to conquer, just experiences to navigate and lessons to learn. Ultimately, the antidote to rejection's sting isn't building thicker skin or caring less. It's recognizing that your power to choose your response can never be rejected. That promotion, that relationship, that opportunity, these are externals. Your dignity, your growth, your next attempt, these are yours forever. 2. The hidden power of not caring what others think. A Silicon Valley executive named Marcus just spent $150,000 on a Tesla, not because he needed it, but because everyone in his circle drives luxury cars. He posts carefully curated photos on LinkedIn, attends networking events he secretly hates, and maintains a lifestyle that's slowly bankrupting him. Why? Because he's terrified of what people might think if he drove a Honda or lived in a modest apartment. Marcus has unknowingly become a slave to other people's opinions, and it's destroying him from the inside out. This is the trap millions of us fall into daily. We've become so obsessed with external validation that we've forgotten a fundamental truth the Stoics discovered. The moment you stop needing others' approval is the moment you become truly powerful. Not powerful in an arrogant way, but powerful in the sense of being genuinely free to live according to your values. Epictetus, who went from slave to renowned philosopher, understood this better than anyone. He taught, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." But he wasn't just talking about material wealth. He meant the wealth of not needing constant validation, likes, shares, or approving nods from people whose opinions shouldn't matter to your life. Here's what's actually happening when we care too much about others' opinions. We're essentially saying, random stranger, coworker I barely know, social media follower I've never met, you get to decide if I'm worthy today. We're handing out voting rights to our self-worth like campaign flyers, then wondering why we feel so unstable. The Stoics identified this as one of humanity's greatest weaknesses, what they called empty opinion. Seneca wrote, "Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and profound." He watched Rome's elite destroy themselves chasing the latest trends, the newest fashions, the most current opinions, never realizing they were chasing shadows. Let me share a modern example that perfectly illustrates this ancient wisdom. A photographer in Brooklyn named Jamie used to obsess over Instagram likes. She'd post a photo and refresh compulsively, her mood rising and falling with each heart icon. One day, after a photo she loved got only 12 likes, she nearly quit photography entirely. Then she discovered Stoic philosophy and tried an experiment. She created a private account just for herself and spent 6 months shooting without posting anything publicly. What happened? Her photography transformed. Without the constant need for validation, she started taking risks, exploring new styles, and capturing what moved her rather than what she thought would get likes. When she finally returned to public posting, her work was so authentic and powerful that it attracted genuine appreciation. But more importantly, she no longer needed it. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself, to make it just and holy." The hidden power isn't in not caring at all, it's in caring about the right things. The Stoics distinguished between two types of desires, natural and empty. Natural desires are for things like food, shelter, and genuine friendship. Empty desires are for fame, status, and constant approval. The problem with empty desires is that they're never satisfied. Get 100 likes, you want 1,000. Get praised by one person, and you need praise from everyone. It's what modern psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. You run faster and faster but never arrive anywhere. Here's a practical Stoic exercise for breaking free from approval addiction. Before making any decision, ask yourself, Am I doing this because it aligns with my values or because I'm afraid of judgment? Before posting on social media, pause and ask, would I still share this if no one could see it? Before buying something, consider, do I want this or do I want people to see me with this? The answers might surprise you. That expensive watch isn't about telling time. It's about telling others you've made it. That humble brag post isn't about sharing joy. It's about harvesting validation. That agreement with someone's opinion you actually disagree with isn't about harmony. It's about avoiding the discomfort of potential disapproval. Seneca practiced what he called voluntary hardship, periodically living simply to prove he didn't need luxury or status. He'd sleep on the floor, eat plain food, wear simple clothes, not as punishment, but as liberation. He discovered that the fear of losing status was worse than actually living without it. You can try a modern version. Spend a week without checking social media metrics. Wear your least impressive clothes to a social event. Share an unpopular but honest opinion in a meeting. Express a genuine interest that might seem uncool. Notice how the anticipated judgment rarely materializes, and even when it does, it has no real power over your life. The paradox is that when you stop needing everyone's approval, you often earn genuine respect. People are drawn to authenticity like moths to flame in our fake, filtered world. The person who speaks truth in a room full of people pleasers, who pursues their genuine interests regardless of trends, who lives according to their values rather than others' expectations, that person becomes magnetic. But here's the crucial point. You can't fake not caring. It's not about developing a rebellious attitude or becoming contrarian. It's about what the Stoics called autarkia, self-sufficiency of character. It's knowing that your worth comes from your choices, your integrity, your efforts to grow and contribute, not from the fluctuating opinions of others. As Epictetus brilliantly summarized, if anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, he was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone. This isn't arrogance, it's the ultimate freedom. When you truly know yourself, others' opinions become merely information, not verdicts. 3. What to do when someone tries to control you. Jessica's boss in her Manhattan financial firm had a favorite weapon: public humiliation. Every Monday meeting, he'd single someone out for brutal criticism. Last week was Jessica's turn. If you can't handle basic analysis, he sneered in front of 20 colleagues, maybe you should consider a career change. Then came the threat, fix this by Friday or we'll discuss your future here. Jessica felt her stomach drop, her face burn, her hands tremble. In that moment, she felt completely powerless, another victim of workplace tyranny. But was she really powerless? The ancient Stoics faced far worse, actual tyrants with the power to exile, torture, or execute them, yet they discovered something revolutionary. No one can truly control you unless you hand them the controls. This isn't feel-good philosophy, it's practical psychology that can transform how you handle every manipulator, bully, or control freak in your life. Epictetus, who lived under the brutal reign of Emperor Domitian, illustrated this principle with stunning clarity. When discussing how he'd respond to a tyrant's threats, he said, "If he says, 'I will put you in chains,' I reply, 'He is threatening my hands and my feet.' If he says, 'I will behead you,' I answer, 'He is threatening my neck.' If he says, 'I will throw you into prison,' I say, 'He is threatening my whole paltry body.'" Notice what Epictetus is doing here. He's not denying the tyrant's physical power. He's revealing the tyrant's limitations. Yes, someone can chain your body, ruin your reputation, take your possessions. But they cannot chain your mind, ruin your character, or take your ability to choose your response. This distinction isn't just philosophical wordplay, it's the difference between being controlled and being unconquerable. Modern psychology confirms what the Stoics intuited. Controllers and manipulators rely on what researchers call psychological reactance, your automatic emotional responses to threats. They're counting on your fear, anger, or shame to make you compliant. But when you understand this mechanism, you can short-circuit it. Take Daniel, a software developer in Seattle whose narcissistic business partner constantly threatened to dissolve their startup if Daniel didn't work weekends. "Without me, you're nothing," the partner would say. "I made you successful." For months, Daniel complied, sacrificing his health and relationships. Then he discovered Stoic philosophy and realized a profound truth. His partner could indeed dissolve the company, but couldn't dissolve Daniel's skills, experience, or ability to start fresh. The Stoics taught that we have a faculty called prohairesis, our moral choice or will. This is the one thing that remains absolutely under our control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to your own business and be ready to be a good person in whatever circumstances you find yourself. For this is your business, to act well the part that is given to you." When someone tries to control you, they're essentially saying, "I will make external circumstances so unpleasant that you'll surrender your power of choice to avoid discomfort." But here's what they don't want you to realize: the discomfort they threaten is often less painful than the slavery of compliance. Let's get practical. When facing a controller, use what I call the Stoic response protocol. First, identify what they're actually threatening. Strip away the emotional manipulation and see the bare facts. Your boss can fire you, that's a fact. But "you'll never work in this industry again" is usually an empty threat designed to trigger panic. Second, acknowledge their power over externals while asserting your power over internals. You might say, "You're right, you can terminate my employment. That's your decision to make. How I respond to that possibility is mine." Third, make your choice from a place of values, not fear. Ask yourself, if I comply, am I acting from wisdom or from weakness? If I resist, am I being principled or merely stubborn? Seneca, who dealt with the paranoid Emperor Nero, wrote, "Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and profound." He understood that controllers create artificial urgency and drama to keep you reactive. They need you off balance, emotional, desperate. Your power lies in returning to fundamental truths. What can they actually do? What remains mine regardless? What would a person of integrity do here? Consider how this applies to different control scenarios. Emotional blackmail: "If you leave me, I'll hurt myself." They're trying to make you responsible for their choices. Your response: compassion without compliance. Get them help, but don't let their threats dictate your life decisions. Financial control: "You'll lose everything if you don't do what I say." Maybe you will lose money or property, but you won't lose your ability to rebuild, to learn, to maintain your dignity. Sometimes freedom costs something. The question is it worth the price? Social control: everyone will turn against you. Perhaps some will. But as Epictetus taught, what disturbs people's minds is not events but their judgments on events. Their opinions are their business. Your character is yours. The ultimate Stoic response to control attempts is what Epictetus called the discipline of desire. Want what happens, not what you wish would happen. This doesn't mean being passive. It means accepting reality while choosing your response wisely. If someone fires you unjustly, accept the job loss while choosing how to move forward with dignity. Here's the profound paradox: when you genuinely don't need to avoid what controllers threaten, they lose all power. When Jessica finally told her abusive boss, "I understand you may fire me, I'll continue doing my best work until that happens, but I won't accept being spoken to disrespectfully. Something shifted. Bullies need victims. When you refuse to play that role, not through aggression but through calm assertion of your boundaries, the whole dynamic changes. Therefore, when someone tries to control you, remember they're revealing their own weakness, not your powerlessness. As Marcus Aurelius noted, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Your unconquerability doesn't come from fighting controllers on their terms. It comes from recognizing what's truly yours, your choices, your character, your response, and holding on to that with unshakable resolve. 4. How to build military-grade mental toughness. David was a successful Chicago entrepreneur when the 2020 pandemic hit. Within 3 months, his restaurant chain collapsed, his savings evaporated, and his business partner sued him. Sitting in his empty apartment, having sold everything to pay debts, he remembered something his Marine grandfather once told him: "Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional." That memory sparked a journey into Stoic philosophy that would transform David from a broken businessman into someone with unshakable mental fortitude. The Stoics understood something that modern military training has rediscovered. True toughness isn't about being emotionless or invulnerable. It's about developing what they called ataraxia, a state of robust tranquility that can withstand any storm. This isn't the fake toughness of social media motivational quotes. This is the real deal, the kind of mental strength that allowed Marcus Aurelius to lead Rome through plague and war while maintaining philosophical composure. Seneca wrote, "Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and profound." It is easy enough to arouse in a listener a desire for what is honorable, for in every man, nature has laid the foundations or sown the seeds of the virtues. We are born to them all of us, and when a person comes along with the necessary stimulus, then those qualities of the personality are awakened, so to speak, from their slumber. Building military-grade mental toughness starts with understanding what the Stoics called voluntary hardship or ascesis. Modern Navy SEALs call it stress inoculation. The principle is identical. By voluntarily exposing yourself to controlled discomfort, you build immunity to involuntary suffering. Here's how to implement this ancient practice in modern life. Start with physical challenges. Take cold showers every morning for 30 days. Not lukewarm, but genuinely cold. As you stand under that icy water, practice what Epictetus taught. Separate the physical sensation from your judgment about it. The water is cold, that's a fact. This is terrible and I can't stand it, that's an opinion you're adding. Marcus Aurelius practiced his own version by sleeping on hard surfaces and eating simple food despite having access to imperial luxury. He wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." He wasn't punishing himself, he was proving to himself that his happiness didn't depend on comfort. Next comes emotional resilience training. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining loss before it happens. Spend 10 minutes each week visualizing setbacks, losing your job, facing criticism, experiencing rejection. Not to manifest negativity, but to rehearse resilience. When David rebuilt his business empire from scratch, he credited this practice. "I had already grieved every possible loss in my mind. When they actually happened, I was prepared." But here's where Stoic training diverges from typical tough guy approaches. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending nothing affects you. Seneca, despite his wealth and power, openly wrote about his fears and struggles. The difference? He didn't let these emotions control his actions. As he explained, what is the principal thing? A heart that can face trouble and remain calm, not merely enduring poverty but choosing it, not merely facing death but seeking it when honor demands. The third pillar of Stoic toughness is what they called the view from above. When facing any hardship, zoom out mentally. See your problems from the perspective of history, the cosmos, and eternity. Your business failure? Companies rise and fall every day. Your heartbreak? Billions have loved and lost. This isn't minimizing your experience, it's contextualizing it. A practical exercise: write down your worst current problem. Now write how it will matter in 10 years. Then 50 years. Then consider how it looks from the perspective of human history. This cosmic perspective doesn't make problems disappear, but it prevents them from consuming you entirely. The fourth element is building what the Stoics called the inner citadel, an unassailable core of values and principles. Special Forces operators have a similar concept: who you are in the dark. It's your character when no one's watching, your choices when everything's falling apart. Define your non-negotiables. What principles will you maintain regardless of circumstances? For David, it was honesty and hard work. Even when bankruptcy seemed easier than rebuilding, he honored every debt. This wasn't just ethics, it was training. Every time you maintain your principles under pressure, you strengthen your inner citadel. The fifth component is radical acceptance combined with strategic action. Epictetus taught, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. This isn't passive resignation. It's what modern military strategists call operating within constraints. Accept the battlefield you're on while maximizing your tactical options. When David's restaurants closed, he didn't waste energy on "why me?" or "this isn't fair." He accepted the reality and immediately asked, "What can I do with what I have?" He started a food delivery service from his apartment kitchen, eventually building it into a larger enterprise than his original business. The final element is community. Even the toughest soldiers don't operate alone. The Stoics, despite their emphasis on self-sufficiency, deeply valued friendship and mutual support. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Human beings have been made for the sake of one another. Teach them or endure them. Find others on the same journey. Share your practices, challenges, and victories. Not for validation, but for mutual strengthening." David started a group for entrepreneurs who'd lost everything in the pandemic. They practiced Stoic exercises together, supporting each other's rebuilding efforts. Here's your training protocol: morning cold exposure for physical resilience. Weekly negative visualization for emotional preparation. Daily cosmic perspective exercises for mental clarity. Regular values testing through difficult choices. Immediate acceptance of unchangeable circumstances combined with strategic action. Connection with others pursuing wisdom. This isn't about becoming superhuman. It's about becoming fully human, capable of facing whatever life presents with dignity, wisdom, and strength. As Seneca promised, every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and profound. 5. The Holocaust survivor who couldn't be broken. In the winter of 1944, Viktor Frankl stood naked in the freezing courtyard of Auschwitz, stripped of everything: his clothes, his wedding ring, his manuscript representing years of scientific work. SS guards screamed insults while prisoners around him collapsed from exhaustion and despair. Yet in that moment of absolute degradation, Frankl made a discovery that would revolutionize our understanding of human resilience. They could take everything from him except his power to choose his response. This wasn't philosophical theory crafted in a comfortable study. This was wisdom forged in humanity's darkest hour, proving what the ancient Stoics had long taught, that even in the most extreme circumstances, we retain an inviolable freedom, the freedom to choose our attitude. Frankl observed something that shattered conventional assumptions about human behavior. In the camps, Some prisoners who had been wealthy, educated, and privileged quickly descended into what he called moral deformity, stealing bread from the dying, collaborating with guards, betraying fellow prisoners for an extra ration. Meanwhile, others who had nothing maintained extraordinary dignity, sharing their last piece of bread, comforting the suffering, choosing death over betraying their values. As Epictetus taught centuries earlier, no one can hurt you without your permission. It is not death or pain that is to be dreaded, but the fear of pain or death. Frankl witnessed this principle in its most extreme test. The Nazis could inflict unimaginable physical suffering, but they couldn't force anyone to become cruel, selfish, or broken in spirit. Frankl wrote about one particular evening when prisoners were forced to march through freezing mud, driven by guards' whips. A fellow prisoner whispered to him, "If our wives could see us now, I do hope they are better off in their camps and don't know what is happening to us." This sparked a profound moment for Frankl. He began conversing with his wife in his imagination, seeing her face, hearing her voice, feeling her presence so vividly that the hellish march faded into background noise. In that moment, he understood what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Even in Auschwitz, the human spirit could transcend circumstances through the power of meaning and choice. But Frankl's insight went deeper than mere positive thinking. He noticed that prisoners who survived weren't necessarily the physically strongest or most optimistic. They were those who found meaning in their suffering. Some lived to reunite with family, others to bear witness. Some found meaning in helping fellow prisoners. What mattered wasn't the specific meaning but having one. This aligns perfectly with Stoic teaching. Seneca wrote, "Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and profound." In the camps, all superficial meanings, wealth, status, comfort were stripped away. Only the profound remained: love, dignity, purpose, choice. Frankl described how the Nazis had created what seemed like a perfect system of dehumanization. Prisoners were given numbers instead of names, dressed identically, starved into skeletal uniformity. Yet even this couldn't erase individuality for those who refused to surrender it. He told of prisoners who walked through the huts, comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. "They may have been few in number," he wrote, "but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." This echoes Epictetus perfectly. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Death is nothing terrible, else it would have appeared so to Socrates. But the opinion that death is terrible is the terrible thing. Even in facing death daily, Frankl and others proved that the event itself held less power than one's chosen response to it. One of Frankl's most powerful observations was about those who gave up. They would lie down one day and refuse to get up, no matter the beatings. Within days, they were dead. But this wasn't just physical collapse, it was spiritual surrender. They had decided life held no more meaning, and that decision, more than starvation or disease, killed them. Conversely, Frankl told of a scientist who kept himself alive by mentally writing his destroyed book, memorizing every chapter, every footnote. A violinist who played concerts in his mind, hearing every note. These weren't escapes from reality, but ways of maintaining identity and purpose despite reality. The practical application for our modern struggles is profound. When facing job loss, illness, betrayal, or any form of suffering, we can remember Frankl's teaching. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. This isn't about minimizing genuine hardship or pretending suffering doesn't matter. It's about recognizing that even in pain, we retain the power to choose meaning. Frankl developed what he called logotherapy, healing through meaning. Unlike other forms of therapy that focus on past traumas or present symptoms, logotherapy asks, what gives your life meaning now? What can you still contribute? What remains worth living for? These questions embody Stoic wisdom in modern form. After liberation, Frankl faced new challenges. Returning to Vienna, he learned his wife, parents, and brother had all been murdered. His life's work was destroyed, yet he chose to rebuild, remarry, and dedicate his life to helping others find meaning in suffering. He lived to 92, proving that those who couldn't break him in Auschwitz couldn't break him in freedom either. His story validates the Stoic teaching that we become unconquerable not by avoiding suffering but by choosing our response to it. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Frankl transformed the impediment of unimaginable suffering into a way of understanding human resilience that has helped millions. Therefore, when you face your own trials, however large or small, remember the man who found freedom in history's darkest prison. You always have a choice, not whether to suffer, but how to suffer, not whether to face hardship, but what meaning to create from it. 6. Why nothing can touch your inner peace. Michael, a Wall Street trader, used to live on an emotional roller coaster. Market up, he was euphoric. Market down, he was devastated. A good trade made him feel invincible. A bad one sent him spiraling into self-doubt. His blood pressure medication kept increasing. His marriage was crumbling, and he hadn't slept properly in years. Then, during a particularly brutal market crash, something strange happened. While his colleagues panicked, screamed at screens, and made desperate trades, Michael felt an unexpected calm wash over him. He'd been studying Stoic philosophy, and suddenly Seneca's words clicked. The mind that is anxious about future events is miserable. This moment marked Michael's transformation from a man tossed by every external wave to someone approaching what the Stoics called the sage ideal. A person whose inner peace remains untouchable regardless of outer chaos. This isn't about becoming an emotionless robot. It's about developing what Seneca called a mind at peace with itself. The Roman philosopher wrote extensively about this state. Bound upon me, rush upon me, I will overcome you by enduring your onset. Whatever strikes against that which is firm and unconquerable merely injures itself by its own violence. Wherefore, seek some soft and yielding object to pierce with your darts. Imagine your inner peace as a mountain. Storms rage around it, lightning strikes it, and avalanches tumble down its slopes. Yet the mountain remains, not because it fights the storms, but because its nature is to be unmovable. But how do we develop this mountain-like quality? The Stoics taught that disturbance comes not from events but from our judgments about events. When Michael's portfolio dropped by millions, the numbers on the screen were neutral data. His interpretation, "I'm ruined, I'm a failure," my life is over, created the suffering. The market crash couldn't touch his inner peace. Only his thoughts about the market crash could. Marcus Aurelius, who faced plagues, wars, and betrayals as emperor, maintained remarkable equanimity through a simple practice. Each morning, he would remind himself, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." This wasn't pessimism, it was preparation. By accepting that difficulties would arise, he removed their power to surprise and disturb him. Consider Emma, a doctor in a busy Chicago emergency room. She used to go home emotionally drained, carrying the weight of every patient's suffering. Discovering Stoic philosophy, she learned to distinguish between compassion and emotional fusion. She still cared deeply for her patients, but she stopped absorbing their pain as her own. As Epictetus taught, what disturbs people's minds is not events but their judgments on events. The Stoic sage ideal represents someone who has perfected this distinction. Seneca described the sage as someone who stands erect under any load. Nothing can subdue him. Nothing that must be endured annoys him. This might sound impossibly idealistic, but Seneca was quick to add that even approaching this ideal transforms our experience of life. The sage doesn't suppress emotions. That's a common misconception. Instead, they experience what the Stoics called eupatheia, good emotions that arise from correct judgments. Joy from acting virtuously, satisfaction from helping others, and affection for friends and family. These emotions enhance life without destabilizing inner peace because they're based on things within our control. Here's a practical framework for developing sage-like qualities. First, practice what the Stoics called prosoke, continuous attention to the present moment. Your inner peace exists only now, not in past regrets or future anxieties. When Michael learned to focus solely on the current trade, not yesterday's losses or tomorrow's uncertainties, his performance actually improved while his stress plummeted. Second, cultivate what Seneca called premeditatio malorum, imagining loss before it happens. This isn't morbid dwelling, but practical preparation. Spend 5 minutes weekly imagining setbacks, job loss, relationship ending, health challenges. Feel the initial emotional impact, then practice the Stoic response. This is outside my control. My virtue, my choices, my character remain intact. When real challenges arise, you've already rehearsed maintaining equilibrium. Third, develop the practice of objective representation. Strip away emotional coloring from events. Instead of, "My boss humiliated me in front of everyone," try, "My boss spoke critically about my work in a meeting." The facts remain the same, but removing dramatic interpretation preserves inner calm. Fourth, remember the reserve clause, adding "if fate permits" to your plans, not from superstition but from wisdom. I will complete this project successfully if fate permits. This mental reservation prevents disappointment when circumstances change while maintaining full commitment to your efforts. The sage ideal also involves what Epictetus called desire and aversion training. Desire only what's up to you, your judgments, choices, and actions. Be averse only to vice and poor character in yourself. Everything else, wealth, health, reputation, is preferred when present, but doesn't require peace. A modern example: Sarah, a tech entrepreneur, built her startup with Stoic principles. She worked passionately towards success while remaining unattached to outcomes. When a larger company offered to buy her out, negotiations fell through at the last minute. Her investors panicked, but Sarah remained calm. "I controlled my preparation and negotiation. The outcome was never mine to control." She pivoted strategies and eventually built an even more successful company. The ultimate truth about inner peace is this: it's not found by arranging external circumstances perfectly. It's cultivated by developing correct judgments about whatever circumstances arise. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This doesn't mean withdrawing from life or not caring about outcomes. The Stoic sage engages fully with life while maintaining an unshakable core. Like a skilled sailor who can't control the weather but can adjust their sails, the sage navigates life storms without being capsized by them. In essence, nothing can touch your inner peace because true peace doesn't depend on anything touchable. It rests in your character, your virtues, your choices, the only things that are truly yours. 7. Master your emotions in 60 seconds or less. The driver who just cut you off in Los Angeles traffic triggers instant rage. Your heart pounds, your hands grip the wheel, and you're already composing the perfect string of expletives. But wait, in the next 60 seconds, you could either spiral into road rage that ruins your entire morning, or you could master this emotional surge and arrive at work calm and focused. The Stoics discovered the exact mechanism for this rapid emotional mastery over 2,000 years ago, and modern neuroscience has proven they were right. Here's the critical insight. You have a brief window between stimulus and response where everything can change. The Stoics called this the moment of fantasia. When an impression hits your mind, but before you've accepted it as truth, that driver cutting you off, that's the raw impression. That inconsiderate jerk is disrespecting me and deserves punishment. That's the judgment you're about to add. But in that split-second gap, you have divine power, the ability to choose a different judgment. Epictetus taught this distinction brilliantly. When you see someone weeping in grief, either for a child gone abroad or for loss of property, beware that you are not carried away by the impression that they are in the midst of external ills. But be ready to say immediately, "It is not the external situation that torments this person, but their judgment about it." Let's break down the 60-second protocol for emotional mastery. First, recognize the physical sensation, 0 to 10 seconds. That rush of heat, the muscle tension, the accelerated heartbeat, these are what the Stoics called first movements. They're automatic, biological, and not under your direct control. Even Marcus Aurelius felt these initial stirrings. The difference between a Stoic sage and everyone else isn't the absence of these sensations, but what happens next. Second, pause and label, 10 to 20 seconds. Instead of being swept away by the emotion, become its observer. I notice anger arising. This simple act of labeling activates your prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center, and begins to calm the amygdala, your emotional alarm system. Neuroscientists call this affect labeling, and brain scans show it literally cools down emotional centers within seconds. Third, question the story, 20 to 40 seconds. What judgment are you adding to the raw event? That driver who cut you off, maybe they're rushing to the hospital. Maybe they didn't see you. Maybe they're having the worst day of their life. Or maybe they're just a poor driver. The point isn't to make excuses for them, but to recognize that your story about their intentions is just that, a story. Marcus Aurelius mastered this practice, writing, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." When someone insulted him, he wouldn't waste energy constructing narratives about their motivations. He'd simply ask, "Is there truth in their words that I can use to improve? If not, their opinion is their business." Fourth, choose your response, 40 to 50 seconds. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes practical power. You've recognized the emotion, paused to observe it, and questioned your automatic story. Now you consciously choose. Will I act from wisdom or from passion? Will this matter in an hour, a day, a year? Fifth, implement the antidote, 50 to 60 seconds. The Stoics identified four primary passions and their remedies. For distress, including anger, apply the antidote of present moment acceptance. This has already happened. My anger cannot change it. For fear, apply courage through perspective. What's the worst that could happen? Can I handle it? For intense desire, apply moderation. I prefer this, but I don't need it. For excessive pleasure, apply temperance. This is pleasant, but it doesn't define my worth. Here's a real-world example. Jennifer, a marketing director in Seattle, used to explode when employees missed deadlines. One day, her top designer delivered a crucial project 3 days late. The old Jennifer would have unleashed fury. Instead, she applied the 60-second protocol. Physical recognition. I feel heat in my chest, tension in my jaw. Pause and label. Anger is arising. Question the story. Am I angry because the project is late or because I feel disrespected? Choose response. What outcome do I want here? To vent or to solve the problem? Implement antidote. The deadline has already passed. How do we move forward effectively? The conversation that followed was productive instead of destructive. The designer explained unexpected technical challenges. They problem-solved together and implemented systems to prevent future delays. Her team actually became more loyal because they saw her emotional mastery under pressure. Seneca provided a powerful technique for anger specifically. The best remedy for anger is delay. But he meant intelligent delay, those crucial 60 seconds where you transform from reactive to responsive. He also recommended physical interventions. When you feel anger rising, change your position. If standing, sit. If sitting, walk. The body influences the mind. For anxiety, Epictetus offered this 60-second intervention. Ask yourself, is this under my control? If yes, take action. If no, accept it. He taught, when I see an anxious person, I ask myself, what do they want? For if a person wasn't wanting something outside of their own control, why would they be anxious? The science behind this is fascinating. Your amygdala can hijack your behavior in milliseconds, flooding your system with stress hormones. But your prefrontal cortex can override this hijack within 60 seconds if you engage it properly. The Stoics intuited this through observation and practice. We've now confirmed it through brain imaging. Remember, mastering emotions doesn't mean suppressing them. As Marcus Aurelius acknowledged, if you are distressed by anything external, The pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Feel the emotion, but don't be ruled by it. Experience the first movement, but choose the second. With practice, this 60-second protocol becomes automatic. You'll find yourself catching emotional surges earlier, questioning stories faster, and choosing responses more wisely. What once took conscious effort becomes second nature, the mark of true Stoic progress. 8. Your 3-layer defense system against life's attacks. Rachel thought she had it all figured out. A successful Boston attorney with a waterfront condo, she prided herself on being tough, rational, and unflappable. Then life launched a coordinated assault. Her biggest client sued her for malpractice, falsely. Her fiancé revealed he'd been cheating for months, and her mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer, all within the same week. Each blow penetrated deeper, until she found herself sobbing on her bathroom floor at 3 a.m., feeling utterly conquered. What Rachel didn't understand was that she'd been defending only her outermost wall, while leaving her inner citadel completely exposed. The Stoics developed a sophisticated understanding of how we can be attacked and, more importantly, how we can defend ourselves. They envisioned our psyche as a fortress with 3 distinct defensive layers. Understanding and fortifying each layer is the key to becoming truly unconquerable. Layer 1, the emotional perimeter. This is your first line of defense, your immediate emotional responses to external events. When someone insults you, betrays you, or threatens you, this is where the initial impact hits. The Stoics called these first movements or propathei, the automatic emotional reactions that even sages experience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But he also acknowledged that initial emotional responses arise before conscious thought. The key is defending this layer through preparation and perspective. Think of this layer like the outer walls of a medieval castle. They're designed to absorb the first shock of attack, but they're not meant to be impregnable. When Rachel's client sued her, the initial shock and anger were natural. The mistake was believing this emotional breach meant total defeat. To fortify this layer, practice what Seneca called premeditatio malorum, imagining setbacks before they occur. Every morning, spend 5 minutes visualizing potential challenges. Not to manifest negativity, but to pre-process emotional responses. When Rachel's fiancé confessed his infidelity, the pain was real, but if she'd mentally rehearsed this possibility, the emotional impact would have been manageable rather than devastating. Epictetus provided specific training. When you kiss your child, brother, or friend, never allow your imagination to range at pleasure, nor allow your elation to progress as far as it will, but curb it, restrain it. This isn't about becoming cold, but about maintaining emotional equilibrium. Love deeply, but remember that all external things can be lost. Layer 2, the rational battlements. When emotions breach your first layer, your second defense activates: rational analysis and reframing. This is where you examine your judgments about events and choose whether to accept or reject them. The Stoics considered this the most crucial battlefield. Epictetus taught, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." When Rachel's client sued her, the event itself was neutral papers filed in court. Her judgment: "This will destroy my career. I'm a failure," Everyone will think I'm incompetent, created the suffering. This layer requires what the Stoics called discipline of judgment. When under attack, ask yourself, what exactly happened? Strip away interpretation, drama, and future projections. Rachel's situation. A client filed a lawsuit. That's all. Not my life is over or I'm ruined. Just legal papers were filed. Then apply the dichotomy of control. What aspects are up to you? Rachel could control her legal response, her professional conduct, and her choice to learn from the situation. What's not up to her? The client's actions, the judge's decision, and others' opinions. By focusing only on what she controlled, she could mount an effective defense rather than wasting energy on unchangeable externals. Modern psychology calls this cognitive reframing, but the Stoics perfected it centuries ago. When someone attacks your reputation, your second-layer defense asks, does their opinion change who I am? Can their words alter my character? As Marcus Aurelius noted, how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does. Layer 3, the inner citadel. This is your final, impregnable defense, your moral choice, your values, your character. The Stoics called this prohairesis, your faculty of choice that no external force can touch. Even if emotions overwhelm you and rational defenses crumble, this core remains inviolate if you choose to protect it. Epictetus, who endured slavery and physical disability, understood this deeply. No one can hurt you without your permission. They can chain your body, ruin your reputation, take your possessions, but they cannot force you to compromise your values or abandon your principles. When Rachel hit rock bottom, crying on that bathroom floor, her first 2 layers had been breached. But even then, she retained ultimate power, the choice of how to respond. Would she become bitter? Would she compromise her ethics in the legal battle? Would she abandon her mother in despair? These choices remained entirely hers. Viktor Frankl discovered this truth in Nazi concentration camps. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. This inner citadel is what makes humans unconquerable. External forces can batter your walls, breach your defenses, but they cannot capture your essential self unless you surrender it. To fortify this innermost layer, clarify your core values. What principles will you maintain regardless of circumstances? For Rachel, it was integrity, compassion, and resilience. Even facing lawsuits, betrayal, and loss, she could choose to act with integrity, show compassion, even to herself, and demonstrate resilience. Integrated defense strategy. These layers work together. When online trolls attack, your first layer manages the initial sting of cruel words. Your second layer analyzes. Anonymous strangers are expressing opinions based on limited information. Your third layer affirms, my worth comes from my character, not their comments. The beauty of this system is its redundancy. Even if you're caught off guard emotionally, you have rational defenses. Even if rationality fails, your core values remain. As Seneca wrote, every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and profound. With practice, these defenses become automatic. Rachel rebuilt her life by consciously strengthening each layer. She now faces challenges with emotional resilience, rational clarity, and unshakable values. The attacks still come, that's life. But she's no longer conquerable. 9. What Frodo's journey teaches about unbreakable willpower. In Tolkien's epic, a small hobbit carries the most dangerous object in Middle-earth, a ring that corrupts everyone who bears it. The One Ring whispers constantly, promising power, creating desire, fostering addiction. Sound familiar? Replace the ring with your smartphone, that toxic relationship, your shopping addiction, or your need for constant validation, and Frodo's journey becomes a masterclass in Stoic resistance to destructive attachments. The parallels between Frodo's burden and our modern struggles are striking. Just as the ring grew heavier with each step toward Mount Doom, our attachments become more demanding the longer we carry them. James, a tech executive in San Francisco, discovered this when he realized his phone addiction was destroying his life. "I couldn't go 5 minutes without checking it," he admitted. Meetings, dinners, even my daughter's recital. I was always somewhere else mentally, drawn to that glowing screen like Gollum to his precious. The Stoics understood this corrupting power of attachment long before Tolkien illustrated it. Epictetus warned, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." The ring represents everything we think we need but actually enslaves us. Status, approval, material possessions, even certain relationships. These aren't inherently evil, just as the ring wasn't created evil. But our attachment to them corrupts our judgment and enslaves our will. Consider how the ring affected different characters. Boromir, the mighty warrior, fell quickly to its temptation because he attached his identity to strength and victory. The ring promised ultimate power to achieve his goals. Modern parallel? Sarah, a New York investment banker, so attached her identity to professional success that she sacrificed everything, health, relationships, integrity, to climb the corporate ladder. Like Boromir, her attachment to a specific outcome made her vulnerable to corruption. But Frodo's resistance offers profound lessons. First, he never pretended the burden was easy. Throughout the journey, he acknowledged the ring's weight, its whispers, its growing hold on him. Similarly, the Stoics didn't advocate pretending attachments don't affect us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to your own business and be ready to be a good person in whatever circumstances you find yourself." Frodo confined himself to one task, destroying the ring, while acknowledging the difficulty. The critical moment comes when Frodo must choose between his attachment and his mission. At Mount Doom's edge, after carrying the ring thousands of miles, he finally succumbs. "The ring is mine." But here's the profound truth. Even this failure doesn't mean complete defeat. His willpower brought him to the very edge of victory. That he needed help to complete the task doesn't diminish his achievement. This reflects the Stoic understanding of progress versus perfection. Seneca wrote, "Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and superficial to the old and profound." Frodo's journey wasn't about perfect resistance, but persistent effort. Each day he chose to continue despite the ring's growing influence was a victory. Modern neuroscience reveals why this is so difficult. Attachments create neural pathways that strengthen with repetition. The more we indulge a desire, the more our brain craves it. Dr. Anna Lemke's research on dopamine shows that constant stimulation, whether from phones, drugs, or behaviors, creates tolerance. requiring ever-increasing doses for satisfaction. The ring's growing weight perfectly symbolizes this neurological reality. So, how do we carry our own rings to Mount Doom? First, acknowledge what you're carrying. James had to admit his phone wasn't just a tool, but had become his precious. Sarah had to recognize that success had transformed from a goal to an obsession. As Epictetus taught, the first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. Second, create external supports. Frodo had Sam, whose loyalty and perspective helped when Frodo's own will faltered. James joined a digital detox group. Sarah found a mentor who'd left banking for a balanced life. The Stoics, despite emphasizing self-sufficiency, recognized the value of wise companionship. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself but also learned from others. Third, practice what the Stoics called prosoke, continuous attention. Frodo couldn't afford to forget what he carried. When we become unconscious of our attachments, they control us. James set hourly phone alarms, not to check his device but to remind himself not to. Each alarm asked, "Am I using this tool, or is it using me?" Fourth, prepare for the final test. Frodo's ultimate failure at Mount Doom wasn't really a failure, it was human. The Stoics taught that perfection is the goal, but progress is the achievement. When James finally deleted social media apps, he reinstalled them 3 times before they stayed gone. Each reinstall wasn't a failure, but part of the process. Fifth, understand that destruction requires action. Frodo couldn't think the ring into destruction. He had to physically journey to Mount Doom. Similarly, breaking attachments requires concrete steps. Sarah didn't just decide to value balance. She changed jobs, moved cities, and restructured her entire life. The most profound lesson comes from Gollum, the cautionary tale of complete surrender to attachment. He shows what happens when we let desires consume identity. Modern golems check their phones 150 times daily, sacrifice relationships for career advancement, or pursue wealth while losing their souls. As Seneca warned, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor. But here's the hope. Even Gollum served a purpose. His obsession ultimately led to the ring's destruction. Our failures and struggles with attachment can teach us and others. James now counsels tech addiction. Sarah mentors young professionals about work-life balance. Their Gollum moments became their teaching credentials. The journey to Mount Doom represents every human struggle with attachment. We all carry rings, habits, desires, dependencies that promise happiness but deliver slavery. The question isn't whether you'll be tempted or even whether you'll sometimes fail. The question is, will you keep walking toward that mountain? As Frodo learned, and the Stoics taught, unbreakable willpower isn't about never feeling temptation. It's about choosing your mission over your attachments, one step at a time, even when the burden feels unbearable. The ring may whisper, but you still choose whether to listen. You've just discovered 9 ancient secrets that can transform you from someone at the mercy of life's storms into someone who stands unshakable regardless of what comes your way. From understanding why rejection only hurts when we let it, to building military-grade mental toughness, to creating an impenetrable 3-layer defense system, you now possess a complete blueprint for becoming unconquerable. But knowledge without action is just philosophy. The Stoics didn't develop these principles as intellectual exercises. They forged them in the fires of real adversity, through exile, imprisonment, loss, and betrayal. They proved that human beings can face any external circumstance and emerge not just intact, but stronger. These aren't theories. They're tested weapons against life's chaos. Your journey starts with a single moment of choice. Tomorrow, when frustration first strikes, the person who cuts you off, the disrespectful comment, the unexpected setback, that's your training ground. In that instant between stimulus and response, you'll either react from old patterns or respond from newfound wisdom. Choose wisdom. Feel the emotion, question the story, select your response. That conscious choice is your first victory. The path forward is clear. Begin with one practice. Maybe it's the morning cold shower that proves you can endure discomfort. Perhaps it's the 60-second emotional mastery when anger flares. Or it could be identifying one attachment to approval, comfort, or control and loosening its grip. Start where you feel called, but start today. Remember, becoming unconquerable isn't about becoming heartless or indifferent. It's about becoming selective with your emotional investments, strategic with your mental energy, and unwavering in your values. It's about building such a strong inner foundation that external storms can rage while you remain centered, purposeful, and at peace. The world desperately needs unconquerable people. In our age of perpetual outrage, where everyone's a victim and everything's a crisis, those who maintain their composure become leaders by default. Your unshakable presence gives others permission to find their own strength. Your refusal to be conquered by circumstances shows them it's possible. As Seneca promised, whatever strikes against that which is firm and unconquerable merely injures itself by its own violence. You are becoming that immovable force. Every principle you've learned today is a tool for transformation. Use them, test them, prove them in your own life. If you're ready to join thousands of others on this journey to unconquerable strength, subscribe to Stoic Vivu right now. We release new videos every day, each one packed with practical Stoic wisdom for modern challenges. Don't just watch, participate. Like this video to spread these transformative ideas. Share it with someone who's struggling, someone who needs to discover their own inner power. Drop a comment below sharing which of the 9 secrets resonated most with you. Our community thrives on shared wisdom and mutual support. Together, we're not just learning ancient philosophy, we're building unconquerable lives in the modern world. The choice is yours. Remain at the mercy of external events or step into your power. The Stoics have shown the way. The tools are in your hands. Your unconquerable life begins now.